The global economy will face a tough time in the coming months. That's according to the International Monetary Fund's top leader.
In a major bear market, I think investors fail to really see the forest through the trees in that everything, all asset prices continue to go down. Stocks, bonds, cryptocurrencies.
The Chinese reopening story, I think, is the big macro story for next year.
What might be the big picture in 2023? For most of the economy, it'll be a tough year, tougher than the one we are leaving behind. The question is, why? Will the threat of nuclear war become real? Will the world become safer with enough gas, oil, food, economic stability, peace, and harmony? In today's video, Jim Rickards shares his viewpoint on the wildcards for 2023. Stay tuned until the end of the video, as he also shares his advice for the investors and what they can expect from the 2023 market situation. Let's dive into the video to know more details. But before jumping ahead, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos on the crypto, the market, and global economy.
If you ask people, okay, well, everyone knows the stock market crashed in 1929. When did it regain those highs? How long did that take? The answer is 25 years. It was
1954.
It was 1954 before the market recovered from 1929. Now, it doesn't mean there weren't gains along the way or you couldn't make money. You could. But if you say, oh, I'll just sit tight and wait till it comes back. Well, a lot of people didn't live long enough. They didn't live 20. They never saw their money back because they didn't live 25 more years. So that's a real bear market. It's happened before. And so the point is you need to be prepared for things like that. And no one alive, but very few people alive have seen anything like that. So that's I think that's the right framework to put it in. And if you say, well, what if we had another market crash right now? We'll talk about reasons why in a second. Why couldn't the Fed just come right back in and, print some more money and do the same thing over again and bail out the new failures, whoever they may be, whether it's, I call them Sam Bankman-Fraud, not Sam Bankman-Fried, but some people call him son of Sam Bankman-Fried, just
they're too young to know who son of Sam is. Hey, Jim, they're too young to know who son of Sam is.
Well, you can look it up. He's a serial killer. And this guy, Sam Bankman-Fraud, is a serial killer of net worth. But there's you can just kind of keep bailing things out. Why not do it again? What's the big deal? Well, the answer is each bailout is bigger than the one before. And that's the point. You can go all the way back 1994, Mexico, 1998, Russia, LTCM, 2000 dot-com, 2008 Lehman, 2020 pandemic. And they do bail out, but each one's bigger than the one before. I mean, we threw out $7 trillion of new debt on top of a $1 trillion a year baseline, $7 trillion in new debt to kind of dig our way out of 2020. So there is a limit. There comes a time it's like, hey, this bailout is going to be 20 trillion. Sorry, that check's too big. We're going to have to let some things fail.
The days of rate hikes of 75 basis points are over. And after the soft December CPI report, there is a likelihood of 3 more hikes of 25 basis points each. This belief has given the bulls hope that the market has seen the lows and is now slowly crawling out of the nasty bear market. But according to Jim Rickards, we are entering into a bigger crisis ahead in 2023, something that no one is talking about. He believes things are not going to smooth down anytime soon. The IMF has also warned that 2023 will be a tougher year for much of the global economy as the economies of the US, EU, and China all slow simultaneously. Presently, the world's 3 major engines of growth, the United States, the Eurozone area, and China, are undergoing a period of pronounced weakness, with adverse spillovers for the rest of the world. Many emerging market economies are already struggling with weakening domestic conditions. Let's get into the next clip to see, as in what's the big picture with China's reopening, and what does it mean to investors?
The first thing on my list is the China COVID situation. Now, let me just kind of give a quick background and I'll explain what China's doing and why it's going to fail and why it's a really, really big deal. For the last 3 years, they've been pursuing what's called the zero COVID policy. And zero COVID means what it says. So like if there's one person who gets infected, they quarantine you in your apartment. And using extreme measures in some cases. They've actually had teams come in hazmat suits and weld steel I-beams to the outside of your door so you couldn't get outside your apartment. If 7 or 8 people get it, they shut down a whole neighborhood. 30 people, they shut down a whole city. We're talking Shanghai, 26 million people, Beijing, 22 million people, and other cities, Xi'an, Chongqing. You know, I've been to Wuhan. I've been to all these cities, and they're huge. Nobody in, nobody out. Or if you do, you have to have a negative COVID test, but it can't be more than 48 hours old. So you got to get tested 3 times a week. And they have testing tents every 3 blocks in the city, and you know, masks and all. By the way, none of this stuff works, by the way, but they make you do it. They have COVID concentration camps where they ship people outside the city limits and put them in quarantine, etc. Extremely, extremely damaging to the economy. Can you contain the COVID? Yeah, but at a billion, multi-billion-dollar cost, not to mention social disruption, et cetera. But so the bulls are saying, well, now get in China because they're reopening and they're going to get going. It's not going to happen. China's economy was in trouble anyway. The idea that China's robust and growing, too bad about the COVID, that's not true. And COVID's a disaster, humanitarian and medical disaster. But China was suffering anyway because of too much debt, real estate collapse, decoupling from the US, technological lags, cutting off their ability to steal their intellectual property, and a lot else besides. So so China is probably going to have negative growth this year, maybe even negative growth next year. There's not going to be some great reopening. There's not if you're invested, get out. If you're not invested, don't go in because it's a disaster.
After 3 years, yes, China has reopened its borders with the outside world. The China reopening story is the most powerful market narrative going on today. It is the second largest and one of the fastest growing economies. At least for now, it's more powerful than any Fed analysis, the prospect of a recession, and even lower energy prices in terms of what's driving investor behavior. Jim Rickards advises that investors should pay attention to avoid getting run over by bull market sentiment. According to him, the most important point to grasp regarding the Chinese economy is that it's failing with or without the zero-COVID policy. He believes that the problems run much deeper than that. The Chinese economy is failing because of excessive debt, the collapse of the real estate sector, decoupling from the U.S., the cutoff of high-tech imports to China, and a demographic collapse worse than the Black Death. So don't be fooled. The new decision to let the virus rip through the population will not end China's economic malaise. China's economy may already be in a recession. In the end, the reality of a weak economy and a global recession will have its way. If we listen to Richard's words, don't look for any economic growth coming from China in 2023. Let's get into the clip to see what else is a hindrance for 2023. Also, be sure to like and share.
The next thing I see in 2023 having a major impact on markets, I would say the situation in Ukraine. And there's a lot more there than just, you know, there's obviously a war going on, clear, and Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. Now, the war is tragic. It's brutal. That's what war is. And that's been going on for a while. But there is a financial, economic war wrapped around the military kinetic war, because the U.S., we've been supplying weapons to Ukraine and training, and Poland. A lot of the so-called Ukrainian troops are actually Polish troops wearing Ukrainian army uniforms because so many of the Ukrainian troops have been killed. Various weapon systems are being supplied. There's a drone war going on. Iran's giving drones to Russia. The U.S. has, its own drones. They're supplying them to Ukraine, et cetera. So that's been pretty well vetted. But the economic financial war around it, the U.S. has put sanctions on Russia. The U.S., but also make it clear, the U.S. and the EU and the UK and other allies have joined these sanctions against Russia, and they are unprecedented. And so we froze the reserves of the Central Bank of Russia, completely unprecedented. We froze the reserves of oligarchs. We kicked the Russian banking system out of the international SWIFT message traffic system, that's where big banks record large transfers to each other. It's kind of the nerve center, the beating heart, if you will, of the global financial system, based in Belgium, and Russia has been kicked out of that, and a lot else besides. Limits on Russian oil exports, price caps on Russian oil, and so forth. And then Russia's retaliated. They've banned certain exports of strategic metals, fertilizer, grain, and other essential goods to the rest of the world, or at least to countries that are participating in the U.S. sanctions. So I don't want to spend too much time going down the whole list. It's a long list, but the point is it has been highly, highly disruptive to to the supply chain and the food chain. It's contributed to inflation, and it's getting worse. So that much we know. We already know that, and it's a very big deal. What could get worse? I said, here are the sanctions. Here's what we're going to do. None of it's going to work. And it's going to be worse than that because it's going to boomerang and hurt us. And that's what I told them. And that's exactly what's happened. The Russian ruble, remember Joe Biden saying, we're going to crush the Russian ruble. The ruble today is stronger in foreign exchange markets than it was before the war, et cetera. So Russia's oil revenues are up. The quantity might be down, but the price was up from where it was. And so they're making more money. The foreign exchange reserves are fine. And by the way, 20% in gold. So you can't freeze the gold. You can freeze dollars, you can freeze treasury securities, but not the gold. So what could get worse than what we just described? And all this is continuing and getting worse. And that's a big factor for 2023.
The war in Ukraine is resulting in tragic loss of life and human suffering, as well as causing massive damage to the global economy. Even the IMF anticipates that the Ukraine-Russian conflict will have a severe impact on the global economy. Unprecedented sanctions have been announced on Russia. The sanctions on Russia will also have a substantial impact on the global economy and financial markets, with significant spillovers to other countries. That's going to create a whole series of consequences that will keep markets on tenterhooks in 2023. Energy and other commodity prices, including wheat and other grains, have surged, adding to inflationary pressures from supply chain disruptions and the rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic. The ongoing war and associated sanctions will also have a severe impact on the global economy. So, what does 2023 look like to you? What more wildcards could there be in 2023? How will the global economy be affected by all of this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. For more videos on the economy and market updates, subscribe to my channel. You can also hit that bell icon to never miss any video. Also, be sure to like and share. I'll see you guys in my next video. Adios, and thanks for watching.